and full of greatness and lots of hope right here from TV47's Morning Cafe. I hope that you had a great night. Rise and shine. Let's see what is in the world of news. One would say that, well, this is something that we do on a daily basis, but I know there's that refreshment that comes with every other show. So that's what we're looking forward to this very morning. I hope that you'd be part of it all the way to 9:30 a.m. We have lots lined up for you. And of course, we will definitely get to decipher and on all that as we take a look at what is happening right here and beyond. I'll be looping in my guests that will help us decipher on some of these matters, looking at the political situation in the country and beyond, as well matters education, matters health, and so much more. Later on the broadcast, we get to hit the gym briefly, about 30 minutes of proper intense workout that would get you looking good. And then away from that, a very important conversation as to just the life of love, the life of sex, the life of money, the life of just getting to know your people, and especially this in relation to the report by the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, just looking at what really bedevils us as a people and what are some of the things in terms of our behaviors that we need to project. And so please walk with me. Hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. I sample some of your comments as we continue with the broadcast. My name is Linda Alela, and we have the Daily Nation, the People Daily, as well as the Standard newspaper, the papers this morning. Before we look at the stories that we have prepared for you, allow us to briefly look at some of the stories that have been captured on the front page. Most of them would be looked at as the big stories of the day, and then we will shift gears to those ones that we have worked on. Daily Nation. I see the face of the former president, so, of course, may his soul rest in eternal peace. They say former head of state said to have acquired parcel through directive. This in relation to cases of land, and Moi's land grab case spells doom for big thieves. That trouble awaits families of at least 3 governors, an MP, and other politicians if the Supreme Court allows reports from Kibaki era, that is, wealth audits to form part of its records, as the move could open the door for recovery of some of the prime land documented in them. This is a story as it has been captured on page 7. Just what informs this? The land battle that started sometime in 2014 when the Chelugui family, and of course they proceeded to sue Moi's family, and the Jaswat Rai family owned Rai Plywood, seeking a return of the property or compensation at prevailing market rates. And of course, Justice Anthony Obwayo in 2019 ordered Moi and Rai Plywood to pay the Chelugui family about 1 billion. 1 billion shillings, that is Kenyan shillings. And Moi challenged the decision at the Court of Appeal sitting in Kisumu, but died with the appeal pending. And so we will be looking to see whether finally then justice will be accorded to the family that will deserve that very justice. As they would say, the law will grind slowly, but eventually perhaps get to it. And away from it, of course, so much so has been captured on these papers as well. They speak of 4 families own more than about 22 million poorest. And of course, this is one thing that we'll be following up on now that it's in the corridors of justice, and answers then perhaps would be given in relation to that. And on the back page, one story captured on the front page, but then again expounded on the back page. This in relation to education, boarding, that is Kupet Bucks CS Union, and supports directive for more day schools and scrapping of boarding wings. A story captured on the back page. Yes, let's see what it details briefly. That Minister clarifies that the government won't scrap institutions. Kupet backs Mochogu's call on boarding schools, and Teachers Union has supported the CS's proposal to have boarding schools introduce day wings. Interesting, and that Teachers Union has said that this would perhaps be a good move towards making sure that we have our students having the option of deciding which would be best for them. And of course, schools are set to admit local learners as well. which would be a plus for, yes, the locals. Most of the boarding schools considered, to perform so well in relation to matters education. Perhaps this then would come in handy to benefit, the students that are close to these vicinities where there are boarding schools. Another story here. Ministry posts a first batch of 874 interns to public hospitals, and now the Ministry of Health has started posting the first batch, and this comes after the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union last year threatened industrial action while accusing the government of failing to honor a July 2017 collective bargaining agreement, that in relation to just how they get some of these faces into these spaces of work, most of them who will be intern and then later on become doctors or absorbed as doctors. But also the conversation is on as to those ones that have been interns for the longest time, calling upon the government to officially hire them. New dossier and that claims Raila won in 2022. You must have seen the Secretary General of Jubilee Party also, highlighting some of this. And across board, the members of Azimio One Kenya Alliance, this after the allegation by President, that is Dr. William Ruto, that, it was bad and ugly for the IEBC chairperson, Wafula Chebukati, because someone was after his head. If at all, they would not announce the election results in favor of them. And they say that they really need to get to the bottom of this. And I mean, there's been that clarion call that perhaps it's time that, there's a formation of commission of inquiry to look into these, allegations. And now citing an anonymous whistleblower identified as an electoral official, Azimio, in a fresh claim of victory, alleges that Mr. Odinga won last year's presidential vote by garnering millions of votes against what it is that the current president had, amounting to around 57.3% against President William Ruto's 41.66%. We'll be getting to it. Perhaps that's the biggest story that we allude to this morning, as we also await to see how then the government will react in relation to them having been given that clean bill of health at the level of the highest court of the land, that is the Supreme Court. Wabukala exits the EACC as quietly and as he came in. That is a story captured on page 12. This declared by the CEO Twalib of EACC, and finally he exits like one would rightfully say. I remember during his times when he was coming in 6 years ago is when there was this high conversation as to whether the EACC should be scrapped off or it's a body that is instrumental to addressing the cases of integrity in the country. Well, true to his word, they tried their level best to make sure that the body is maintained, but just what is it that they have done, or he has done as an individual in this very space to make sure that it's a better body and that Kenyans are able to get to the bottom of some of these cases of integrity or integral issues. Certainly one of the things that we'll be looking at as we continue with this broadcast. Act now on Chebukati's death plot, Ruto told. And this following President's revelation of an alleged plot to abduct and murder IEBC chairperson before release of 2022 presidential poll results. Then a section of leaders want the head of state to set up a commission of inquiry that is to probe claims, while others fit outgoing electoral chief as a hero. This, as you can see right there, and the faces of the majority leader at the level of the National Assembly minority leader, that is Opiyo Wandayi, who says we demand an immediate end to empty talk and the selective and vindictive process that the president has embarked on. On the other side, Samson Cherargei, Nandi senator, says then the outgoing IEBC chairperson should be appointed to the government to continue serving Kenyans. He cannot be intimidated or blackmailed. We will wait to see just how this shapes up. Indeed, one of the biggest stories that is taking place in the country, a developing story, equally will be here to give you more updates as to the reactions that will cut across. What survey says about population trends, and the northern Kenya counties register improved but least usage of family planning, while central Kenya counties, except Kirinyaga, leaped even higher in the usage of the same. This is a story captured on page 6. One of the stories also that we'll be looking at this morning, that is later on as we get to have that social conversation as pertaining to our moral fabric and just how we're handling these matters of relationships. That's the Standard newspaper. We briefly look at what the People Daily has in store for us, perhaps more or less the same stories. And the front page of the People Daily, the biggest story, country of the poor. And yesterday it was a cheating nation, or so to speak. You ask ourselves just what is eating up the country, and one of the key things that we'll be looking at. This is actually what was there yesterday. Perhaps we might need to get a different one. Yes, this is the demography that was printed. Let's try and get the most current one, yes, and see what it details. Yes, a little bit different. Let's shelve that one shortly. We'll be looking at a different one. Allow us to take the stories that we have prepared. And a day after President William Ruto alleged there was a plot to abduct and murder the former IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati, then before he announced the results of the August 2022 presidential election, well, the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya group has accused Chebukati of failing Kenyans by allegedly declaring unverified results on August the 15th. Micah Gungo reports.
Ruto William Samoei, number of valid votes, 7 million.
A day after President William Ruto claimed there was a plot to abduct and murder former IEBC chairman Wafula Chebukati before he announced presidential results after the August 2022 presidential contest, Azimio leaders claimed to be in possession of a fresh evidence from an IEBC employee, referred to as a whistleblower, alleging that presidential results were changed soon after Form 34Bs were received at the National Tallying Center at Bomas in Nairobi. They claimed that Odinga won the race to State House with 8,170,355 votes, translating to 57.53% of the total votes cast. According to the new revelations, Kenya Kwanza's William Ruto came a distant second with 5,915,973 votes, representing 41.66% of the total votes cast.
What we have seen in one of the pages is that at one point 144 constituencies had their results verified. And often at times, those results are far from the results that were announced by IEBC, 144 of them.
Jubilee Party Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni has stated that the evidence was presented to the opposition faction by a whistleblower, only identified as Geoffrey Smith. Geoffrey Smith is a self-proclaimed democracy crusader popularly known for his efforts in calling out cases of mutilation in democracy. He is the founder of Vanguard Africa, a non-profit organization that has partnered with African leaders to champion democracy and undertake initiatives geared at defending the principles of democracy in elections. Kioni, while referring to the document, also says results of 59% of the constituencies could not be verified with absolute certainty.
Again, if you reach Smith, he'll tell you how he got to finish it now. We wanted the information available to us during the case so that they could have helped us during the case. IEBC refused to open the servers. That's again in the public domain.
The document and Kioni's sentiments came hours after President William Ruto claimed there was a plot to abduct and murder former IEBC boss Wafula Chebukati. The murder, the head of state explained, was to happen so that a friendly commissioner would announce Raila Odinga as the election winner against what he said was the will of the people. Azimio la Umoja coalition now claims that most of their votes were stolen from the Mount Kenya region, even as they await for their coalition leader Raila Odinga to return to the country to give a comprehensive statement.
You take time also, go through the report. We will summarize it for you. But this is a very sad moment for us as a country. It is really a sad moment for us as a country. And certainly, more information will be given to you. The way forward will also be communicated to you in a short while.
President William Ruto praised Chebukati and his colleagues Abdi Gulie and Boya Molu for upholding the constitution and the rule of law as he exited office officially on Tuesday, January 17, 2023. Last year, during Jamhuri Day celebrations, Ruto feted Chebukati with the Order of the Golden Heart Award, the highest civilian prize for what he said was bowing to the pressure of subverting the will of Kenyans on the ballot. Mike, GOtv 47, Nairobi.
And just one day after the end of their 6-year tenure, presentations for selecting a new panel of commissioners for the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, have already begun. The Senate is set to hold a special sitting that is to discuss a bill that seeks to amend the IEBC Act regarding the composition of the panel. Flora Limuki reports.
Senate Speaker Amason Kingi has set the ball rolling in the process to reconstitute the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC by recalling senators for a special sitting Thursday. In a Gazette notice on Wednesday, the Speaker said the lawmakers will consider the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill 2022. The IEBC Amendment Bill 2022 is set to change the composition of the IEBC selection panel, which conducts the recruitment of IEBC commissioners.
This bill will give the process on how the new commissioners will be recruited.
President William Ruto's allies are fast-tracking the amendment to the IEBC Act. In December 2022, the National Assembly passed the bill proposed by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, which allocates 2 slots to the Parliament Service Commission and 2 slots to the Political Parties Liaison Committee. The bill will be considered by the Senate during a special sitting on Thursday.
So I understand the technical reason for the changes. But of course, there are parties that benefit from that change, and the party that benefits is the one that is in power, and that is only natural.
We gave the opportunity to majority and minority side. As you know and understand, those were one side of the political divide. The long story short, those 4 actually gave birth to the infamous OPEC 4.
The bone of contention is on the number of slots to be allocated to Parliamentary Service Commission (PSC) and the Political Parties Liaison Committee, where the Senate wants 1 position for the PSC and 2 positions for the Political Parties Liaison Committee. Senate Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, which has been conducting public participation on the bill, will table its report to inform the debate.
Because of changing the bill, it will have to go back to the committee of the National Assembly, to look at it, and if they are comfortable and agree with the Senate, then they give it to the Speaker, and then the Speaker sends it to the President.
If it sails through, the bill will enable the Political Parties Liaison Committee, established under Section 38 of the Political Parties Act No. 11 of 2011, and the Public Service Commission to nominate 1 member to the panel. Flora Limuki, TV 47.
Now, the country is staring at a constitutional crisis in the wake of the IEBC chairpersons Wafula Chebukati and Commissioners Abdi Gulie as well as Boya Molu's exit on Tuesday. Legal experts say the trio's exit has left the commission exposed, and of course a by-election to occur given no commissioner is in this very office. Our senior political reporter Apollo Kamau reports on that.
The exit of IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati and 2 other commissioners, Professor Abdi Gulie and Boya Molu, has left IEBC exposed as no commissioner is in office to handle a by-election were it to occur, a move that would plunge the country into a legal and political crisis.
We never amended the law to allow the commissioners to be appointed before their other terms expire. What we end up knowing is a lacuna. God forbid, but if we needed to have an election today, we would have a crisis. So I think it's important that we ensure that that is changed so that the process of appointment happens early. By the time these ones are leaving, we are swearing in the new ones.
The resignation of 3 other commissioners, Vice Chair Juliana Cherera, Francis Wanderi and Justus Nyang'aya, over the 2022 August election fallout, save for Irene Masit, who is waiting to know her fate from the Agri Muchelule-led tribunal, worsening the situation further as IEBC requires a minimum of 3 commissioners to be properly constituted and have a quorum.
We need to stagger the appointments. We need to ensure that, for example now, that we don't appoint the entire commission, appoint half or 4. Then wait for a year or 2 and then appoint the other, so that at any one time we're having crossover of commissioners. That way you have memory. You have people who have memory on what's been happening.
Section 5, Clause 3 of the IEBC Act stipulates that the process of replacement of a chairperson or a member of the commission shall commence at least 6 months before the lapse of the term of the chairperson or member of the commission. That has not happened, which is why legal experts want the matter addressed in law.
For the Public Service Commission, they got it right. The recruitment happened 6 months to the expiry date. So what we are going through right now, we should have recruited a commissioner 6 months ago.
The process of filling IEBC commissioner slots is likely to be long and arduous after the Senate, which is meeting for a special sitting on Thursday to consider the IEBC Amendment Bill 2022, is likely to make changes to the bill, causing more delays in constituting the selection panel to pick the IEBC commissioners. Coalition supremacy wars between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio are also likely to take center stage on who controls the selection panel to have a friendly IEBC in 2027, further delaying the process.
But of course, there are parties that benefit from that change, and the party that benefits is the one that is in power, and that is only natural. I would be surprised that there isn't a party that is power that will not try to push such issues to their best advantage. But I think what is important is that once you have been appointed as a commissioner, you're no longer loyal to your political party.
Justice Muchelule led tribunal probing the conduct of IEBC Commissioner Irene Masit is also likely to have an effect on the selection process of IEBC commissioners, a move likely to affect the timelines. This being the first day IEBC has no commissioner in office, the earliest the selection panel is expected in place is mid next month to kickstart the process of selecting IEBC commissioners, a process that will cast light on the vacuum issue. Apol Kamau, TV47 in Nairobi.
And so Archbishop Emeritus Eliud Wabukala has completed his 6-year tenure as the chairperson of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC. During his tenure, there has been high-profile cases of corruption presented in court involving top government officials. Moigi William takes a closer look at the highs and lows of Wabukala's chairmanship in this report.
Retired Archbishop Eliud Wabukala's tenure at the helm of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission was characterized by high and low moments, with Kenyans setting the bar higher for a man of the cloth tasked with ensuring that the country's coffers are not looted. During the retired Archbishop's stint, EACC had undertaken and concluded investigations in respect to 501 high-impact cases on corruption and related offences as of the year 2022, while 191 others had been finalised in court, according to a report by the Commission.
I live with a lot of joy, sir, that our Commission is stable and you are free every time as government advise, share and work out the programs of government together.
Also among the milestone achieved by the Commission under the stewardship of Wabukala in the fight against corruption is EACC going big on asset recovery, where it is pursuing over 400 civil suits filed in various courts across the country, seeking to recover public assets valued at 14 billion shillings, and also in court seeking to for unexplained wealth valued at approximately 11.6 billion shillings from public officials. Between March 1st and July 31st, 2022, EACC filed in court for recovery of over 4 billion shillings in unexplained wealth held by public officials who cannot remember or sufficiently give account of how they acquired the wealth in question.
EACC is stable with a strategic focus on asset recovery, law enforcement, education, and awareness
The recently concluded general election was also within Wabukala's tenure, with EACC going big on contributing to the barring of aspirants facing corruption cases. In a report earlier released by the Commission, EACC flagged 241 persons with various outstanding integrity issues relating to corruption and submitted a report to IEBC to clear or bar candidates from an election. However, out of the 241 persons, IEBC barred less than 5. It was during his time at the Anti-Corruption Agency where senior politicians, former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko and his Kiambu counterpart Ferdinand Waititu, were forever barred from holding any other state or public office, whether appointive or elective, after being removed from office for contravening Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya that touches on integrity.
In the previous, we have seen chairs of commissions being in the scene of arresting someone who has stolen money. Must you be there? What I can say, he had his dogs at EACC. He didn't bark. He let the dogs bark and let the dogs also bite.
Wabukala was appointed to the position by former President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2017 after the resignation of Philip Kinisu. Unlike his predecessors, governance experts know that Wabukala operated uniquely in a silent way.
Wabukala did what he could do as a human being. By the way, my brother, if you are in charge of institution, you must choose your battles. What can you do and what can't you do? What depends on you without anybody's intervention? We call them make decisions in your spheres of control, not spheres of influence. You can influence, but you cannot control. So I think that's why he went for, what can I do without the blessing of anybody? And that was the creation of the asset recovery strategy, which he was able to bring for Kenyans some money, but he goes home without someone saying, I'm against him, he did this to me, he did this to me.
Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Chief Executive Officer Twalim Baruch has hailed the outgoing chairperson, Archbishop Emeritus Eliud Wabukala, for leaving behind a stable, independent and reliable body in the fight against corruption. Moige William, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, following the announcement by the Cabinet Secretary of Education, Ezekiel Machogu, that grade 7 learners will report to school on January 30th, TV47 sought to assess the preparedness of both private and public schools across the country. Collins Lusweti with that report.
Earlier this week, Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu disclosed that 13,000 schools had met the requirements to host junior secondary schools, with grade 7 pupils expected to resume learning on January 30th as CBC curriculum enters a critical stage of transition.
As of Friday, 13th January 2023, a total of 14,589 public and private schools had been assessed. Of this, 13,221 schools had been approved to host the junior secondary schools.
A visit to a number of public schools revealed that there's still work to be done in a majority of them in order to be ready to receive learners and enable efficient learning under CBC. Some say they are yet to construct laboratories.
Changamoto tu ni mambo ya mahabara, laboratories. Zaweza kuwa na nafasi ya laboratory na pia walimu ambao tunaweza kupewa ataweza kutosha kufunza madarasa yale.
Education stakeholders are also worried about the number of teachers, saying many public schools could be faced with a poor teacher-student ratio, despite an assurance from the Cabinet Secretary that there will be no shortage of teachers.
How many public primary schools do we have? More than 30,000. So it means there are even some public schools that would not have a single teacher. A spot check around the country showed private schools are more prepared to receive grade 7 learners compared to public schools.
Each one of our schools, we are able to accommodate 4 streams in each with an average of 30 students. That will be 240 students we are expecting to get, especially from the feeder schools.
In Nairobi County, the All Saints Cathedral School is in the process of adding more classes to take care of grade 7 learners, with the school already having completed the construction of science and computer laboratories. Teachers in the school say they are 100% ready for junior secondary education.
One of the competencies is digital literacy. So we want our learners to be well equipped so that they can fit in the world wherever they go.
Science equipment and chemicals are ready. The furnitures are ready. And I can be able to confirm that we are more than ready to receive our learners.
Some of the schools we've been able to visit say they have done enough to receive grade 7 learners on 30th January, especially private schools as compared to public schools. Collins Lusweti, TV47, Nairobi.
And days after lecturers at Egerton University expressed their dissatisfaction with the Vice-Chancellor Professor Isaac Kibwage's way of managing the institution, the Vice-Chancellor has responded to the allegations against him, terming them as baseless. Chichi Josephine reports.
In a press conference held in Nakuru last Thursday, members of the University Academic Staff Union WASO voiced their disappointment with the current management. The Dons called for the resignation of the leader and for new leadership to take over. The union believes that this change is necessary to address the issues they have with the current management.
We are asking them with all humility that they should do the honorable thing. That is to leave the offices and other people can occupy them.
The Vice-Chancellor of the university has, however, responded to the calls for his resignation by pointing out that the university receives 185 million shillings from the government as funding. He stated that the university pays tax as a priority with this funding and the remaining funds are used to pay dues to employees.
The government gives us 185 million per month. We raise through fees on the average 26 million per month. This is paid twice in the start of the 2 semesters, but then we spread it over so that we are able to deal with the salary issue. This is against a payroll of about 240 million. If you do your mathematics, you will see that we have a deficit. And that is why we have been unable to fully pay salaries.
He has defended the university's management by pointing out that the institution is not the most indebted among its peers, further explaining that the issue of redundancy is to replace the already exited lecturers with new ones in order to cover the units that the institution offers.
So people will be declared redundant and others will be employed, because they are coming in for a specific need to replace those who have left, to come and take care of expansion of a degree program. But this one which has contracted and is not attracting anybody, those who are teaching it, what are we supposed to do with them? If it is you, what will you do with them? So you let them go. Exactly.
In reference to payment of the Dons, he said that they will seek to get more allocation from the government and settle the dues, as he also noted that Egerton University is on its feet and will be holding its graduation on 10th of February this year.
There is no government which has ever been defeated to deal with this wage bill for these workers. And we, as management, we know that the government is doing something.
Chichi Josephine, TV47.
Now, land grabbing has continued to be an emotionally charged issue within the city of Nairobi, and it is becoming a growing concern as it threatens to cause conflict between the rightful owners and some developers. The GOtv Member of Parliament, Beatrice Alachi, has called on the government to address the matter before it escalates into a legal conflict. Paul Kirobi with more.
The issue of land grabbing allegations is still a contentious one, despite President William Ruto's promise to address the problem in areas where it has become a major challenge upon taking office. The GOtv Member of Parliament, Beatrice Alachi, has spoken out on the matter, calling on the government to provide title deeds for lands owned by public schools, particularly in areas of Nairobi that have been affected by this issue recently. This as private developers have been accused of encroaching on land owned by public entities, making it difficult for schools to carry out their activities and accommodate enough students. This is particularly problematic now, as many junior secondary schools have been temporarily housed in primary schools.
We are fighting a lot of land grabbers within Lavington. We have one, the other side, where the booster is of Safaricom, and we have someone claiming that that is his land. When I got the title of the school, The booster is in the school, and I still insist to Safaricom, it is important to pay. So I think in the whole of Nairobi, even in Eastlands, you'll still find the challenges that we are facing. And the biggest challenge we also face is that we don't even have that land to build schools. So one primary school carries like 4,000 kids.
According to reports, some of the land in question was illegally acquired during the previous regimes by individuals with connections to government agencies.
So these people claim that this part belongs to them. It's called Kemsom Holdings. Like, when you read the narration here, it says that the whole of this part, amalgamation of these three plots, 1, 2, 3, was done into one in 1989. Then these people,
it was for primary.
The whole of this one is in a primary yote.
This issue comes at a time when the Ministry of Land and Physical Planning has begun digitizing land records in an effort to resolve ongoing conflicts.
Here we have more than 1,800 girls already. And I know from one we will have a very, very huge intake in terms of the kids who are coming from Kawangware. So I would really plead to government, we work together, we look at the titles, see how we can safeguard land for schools, and more importantly, where we know people feel this is land that has very high profits when they are selling.
Many of the cases concerning land grabbing have been taken to court, but some take time before they are completed. Paul Kerobi, TV47, Nairobi.
Kenyans have been urged to provide their views on the new proposals by the National Treasury to impose higher excise duty to cosmetic products, alcohol, cigarettes and juices by the 3rd of February before these taxes are effective on the 1st of March 2023. Stanley Nyaringita with more.
Consumers of luxury products, which include cosmetics and beauty products, fruit and vegetable juices, as well as alcohol and cigarettes, are set to feel the pinch if the recommendations made by the Kenya Revenue Authority, KRA, will be implemented on the 1st of March 2023. Cosmetic and beauty products will be hit the hardest as the taxman aims to raise stamp fees from 60 cents per stamp to 2 shillings and 50 cents, which translates to 316.7%. At the same time, stamp fees for fruit juices will go up by 266.7%, while stamp fees for alcohol and cigarettes are set to rise by 78.6%.
In terms of purchase and sale of construction materials, most of them will be taxed. Initially, there were areas that there were grey areas where the developers were taking advantage of, but I believe now KRA will tighten all those grey areas.
This comes as CS National Treasury Professor Njuguna Ndung'u Tuesday reviewed the excise duty regulations 2017 and has welcomed the public to make their recommendations by the 3rd of February, with the new taxes to be effective on the 1st of March 2023.
To Edible Oil Products Limited.
This even as President William Ruto directed the taxman to increase the tax collections annually from 2.1 trillion Kenyan shillings to 4 trillion Kenyan shillings. Stanley Nyaringita, TV47.
Relative to last financial year.
All right, and it's at this point that, we shift gears away from the stories and to the discussion. I don't want to call it a discussion, or whether I should call it that way. You will help me gauge that, or discussions. Sijui Kizungu is a little bit tofauti. Sometimes when you listen to yourself and you listen to others, you want to just ask, is it the right thing that you've just said? So is it getting into the discussion or the discussions? The discussions in the sense that we have a couple of matters that we'll touch on. The discussion in the sense that it could be one. And now when you try to get to a space where you just get to ask yourselves whether Kizungu kweli iko hapa ama ilikuja na meli, and that's just it. We stick to discussion and we get to the discussion. We are safer that way. Evans Wafula, yes. Salimia watu.
Thank you so much. I think the year has begun at of course, law not. Yeah. There's a lot of expectations. Of course, those kids going back to school. I think the parents, from Christmas, now taking kids back to school, I think the government probably has done something to ensure that parents are cushioned, especially this time of difficult times economically, to ensure that no child is left behind, and that when they report to school, they're able to ensure that no child is going to be sent back home because the parents have not been able to pay school fees. And also the challenge on the CBC. I think the government needs to then realize that from the task force that they had established, and now that kids are going back to school, that they don't actually make children to look so different in school with this thing about different uniforms and different thing. I think the uniformity that needs to be in an education and school environment need to be maintained, so that some students don't look like themselves as lesser, or parents don't look at themselves that they're less. I think that's one important thing that we need to do, or we decide generally to scrap uniform in schools.
Wow. Well, that now is a debate or conversation that people have had for the longest of time, the importance of having uniform, whether it creates that aspect of balance, because as well now if you scrap it, then you can imagine how others will feel lesser depending on what attires these students will be wearing to school. So as we welcome Alex Mwathi, engineer, thank you so much for creating time. Say jumbo to the people and maybe allude to what it is or speak to what it is that Evans says.
Good morning, viewers, and Linda, once more for TV47. Really a pleasure and honor for me to be here, to give me an opportunity to speak to this nation through this channel. And thank you so much.
Thank you too.
My position has always been that education lay the foundation of a nation. And every time we do changes, it's good that we give good thought to it as to why we are doing that change. And I'm one of the people who advocated last year and actually talked a lot about this, because I am part of management of public schools. And I knew the challenges were going to come with the double intake in schools that was not capable of being able to handle that. Some schools that had capacity of 1,000 in the last 2, 3, 4 years now are handling about 1,600. And with the double intake, they would have had 2,300. So other than the children being very young, they would not have been able to, too young to cope up with a boarding school situation. They would not have been able to have facilities to be able to be taken care of. And they're still young, so whatever they learn, they could learn in the primary schools that they were doing. There's a whole business that they are now junior secondary, so naturally they got to have different uniform. We went to school when we had Form 1 to 6, and in the same school, and Form 1 to 4, in most schools wore shorts, and Form 5 and 6 wore trousers. We had different uniforms, basically.
Okay.
And for that reason, we recognized the Form 5 and 6 as our seniors. So it's the same thing. Junior secondary will be senior to the people who are up to class 6. I don't think that's a problem. As for uniform, that's a good question. There's a good discussion that should take place. When that decision comes up in the public domain, I'll give my opinion.
Oh, he'll give your opinion then. Well, a very nice way of just running away from, speaking to this, because yes, it can be quite...
Uniforms are very expensive.
They are?
Sometimes even parents say that uniforms are expensive than school fees.
Is it?
Yes.
Well, to a large extent, I think I agree.
If you go to schools where you have to buy like 3 pairs of trousers, 2 pairs of shirts, you have PE kits, then you have boarding schools where you have a separate uniform for weekends, and plus new shoes and stuff like that. I think sometimes parents say that uniform is a bit expensive than school fees.
So as it stands, you find that the class or the grade 6.
In fact, many parents are even crying about not so much about even the school fees itself, because you can negotiate with the school how to pay the school fees.
Yeah.
But then you have to go to school with the uniform. So I think the uniform is really also giving headache to, and then you see the sellers. I mean, some of these uniforms are being, there's actually a kind of monopoly. There are you can find 2 entities are the only ones licensed, or the only ones able to sell those uniforms. You hear about SIGNET and maybe school uniform, but nobody else can be able to produce and sell those uniforms. I think it's high time that also other people are allowed to produce or to also to tailor those uniforms, so that parents can buy anywhere they want to buy, even if it's from EPZ.
Right. Okay, fine. This is one conversation that has been on for the better part of last year to this year. A bit of confusion as to how we just get ourselves into this space. And perhaps we'll be getting to engage specialists on the same to get to know what then the plan is of the government to make sure that we streamline the education sector. It's one of the stories that we also have on the papers, that is in relation to the boarding schools and whether it should be scrapped off or whether we stick to what it is that the CS as well again declares after they had at once, attempted to, get parents to this thought of accepting that we could scrap off boarding schools. Let's drop that one for a moment and look at some of the most important, stories that we've carried also. Wabukala exits the EACC as quietly as he came in. Wafula, the first time that we had Wabukala on board, there was this general feel that the EACC wasn't doing much, that maybe this is a body that needed to be scrapped off because it wasn't bringing so much to the fore in relation to dealing with questions of integrity. But 6 years down, it has managed to survive, and perhaps an agency that will survive longer. Before we get into the aspect of the importance of the EACC, your opinion in relation to the Wabukala's reign?
I think when Wabukala was coming into EACC, I'm one of the people who said that a man of cloth, a man of God, who almost saw the gates of heaven, has been pushed back to go and start mingling and dancing with the evil of corruption. And I think when Wabukala came to EACC, I think what he has seen as a man of God, we thought that he will intervene with prayers like the ones we are seeing in State House. But unfortunately, he has not done much. I don't expect that the DPP could actually recall cases, corruption cases, and the EACC would say nothing or talk nothing about it. And this is a litmus test. I think this is the most critical test that his office has faced.
Yeah.
It is one of the constitutional office, independent office, that people had a lot of expectation in terms of delivery. But then what has actually ended up is that even EACC itself has been accused that it has been investigating people based on their political affiliation. And they have actually been able, I think the prosecutorial powers that should have actually been given to EACC, not to the DPP when it comes to cases of corruption, so that the DPP, the EACC could have its own prosecutors, so that they can actually investigate to conclude cases through investigation and prosecute. But then when they hand files to the DPP, and the DPP has terminated Gachagwa's case. And I think even our president...
Maybe validly,
I cannot say validly. And let's not... You see, the problem with our country is that politicians have actually hijacked this country. Even our beloved president, corruption, and nobody is telling us about what happened to those cases, whether the courts freed him. But you see, all the cases here that has been happening for the last, I think, about 6 months, or maybe about 4 months, is that you've been seeing the DPP just recalling files and saying we did not have sufficient evidence. But if the EACC had those prosecutorial powers and if they had been allowed to investigate cases without any interference, political interference by extension, I think we would actually be talking about, look, other countries, people mentioned in corruption, resigned at their own volition.
Yeah.
We don't need to go through investigation. In fact, the question of integrity, Chapter 6, EACC has basically failed to uphold it. Because Chapter 6 is very clear about state officers. Those who seek elective positions.
Yeah.
Most of these people, even in the government, including some CSS, some CS, could not even be able to be in the position that they are in if EACC was very serious in its work. I think it's just the recommendation they would have given to even the panel that interviewed CSS. And it would be enough for them to realize that these people are not fit to hold public office. And I think that's where EACC has failed. There's a lot of political interference. You can even call it a compromise. And I don't think Wabukala has delivered as what Kenyans expected.
Yeah.
In terms of his salary, he has received his salary. He has been able to understand what really happens there. But in terms of, in fact, if you ask how many people have been jailed because of corruption, you'll find these are petty corruption cases. Police officers who collect bribes. But the mega corrupt are walking free. And there's no way EACC can say that they have actually delivered when we know people who, through proceeds of corruption, are able to hire the best lawyers. Through proceeds of corruption, they are able to even get their freedom. And that's where the problem has been with the EACC. And I think for us to better it and strengthen it, I think we need to reform it and allow it to have at least some prosecutorial powers, be able to conduct their own investigation and prosecute their own cases.
All right.
And at least we should have a special section in the prison where corrupt people have been kept, and we would be looking and saying, this one is here because of corruption.
And you know, we want to ask ourselves, Mwarthi, whether we've been genuine with the formation of the EACC first, and looking at all the barbs that have been traded and shots fired at them for the longest time. We know it's not been easy, right from the times of PLO Lumumba. And, you know, we are at this point where we just want to look at the reign of Wabukala. We have Twalib there who has spoken to his exit, and questions continue to be raised as to just whether we need this body, you know, up until date. Looking at Wabukala's reign, what would you say in relation to how much he has contributed to the sanity of this agency?
When Wabukala was appointed, I'm one of the people that was publicly said that the choice was wrong. Because this is a man who had no passive management skills other than the preaching skills and the church hierarchy. And
managing the church? No, okay, well.
It's totally different.
Totally different.
Totally different. You can't be that and assume that you can do everything. But having said that, I do not think that is really Wabukala's failure. Even in my opinion, that his credentials were wrong for that job. It's more of what the organization is. Remember, the organization was started because the general populace were complaining about what you call corruption that was in the government. And it's not a secret because the government itself admits, and I like repeating this, Linda, that the government itself admits that 1 trillion shillings is lost a year.
Yeah.
Last year, I think last year but one, Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya, in public, said that 2 billion shillings are lost every day. Mnataka nifanye nini? To an extent that whether we need that body or not is not a debate whatsoever. Remember, we started with, I think it was this man who was vying for presidency, the Bossman. He was the first one who led Mwao. He led the first anti-corruption organization, and it's been going on and on and on and on until we reach the time that Wabukala comes. So you form an organization that is certain to do a certain job, but you need political will for that body to be able to work. Now, in my opinion, law is made because the systems assume, or the populace assumes, that 80% of the people are law-abiding, and the law is set so that the 20% who will be delinquent can be arrested and put in. But your problem comes when 80% are delinquent and only 20% follow the law. And I think that's our situation in Kenya.
Yeah.
It's only a picture I can paint, so that every one of us, even when we sit on this studio, castigating Wabukala, castigating the government, we walk out and go and participate in corruption by 8:30.
Yeah.
We leave at 8 o'clock. Yeah. By 8:30, you're already in a system that is corrupt. We are the ones who are running it, and we're the ones who are guiding it. So it's akin to living in a glass house and throwing stones.
Throwing stones, yeah.
And that's our problem. We will continue castigating of Wabukala. We will fight DPP. We'll fight everybody else. But as long as we do everything, and for the sake of the listeners that are listening to me, you wonder, what is this man talking about? Did you know 90% of our drivers overlap on the road? Did you know overlap is a crime?
It is.
It's actually dangerous driving.
That is so common.
Did you know the penalty for dangerous driving? Life imprisonment. Which means when you overlap, you're not different from somebody who is robbing, sorry, what do you call it? Robbery with violence. And if you do that, you're a criminal, really. It's only that you haven't been arrested. And it means that it builds up to what we see. It's a sad situation. Question, do we need the EAC? Yes, we need it, because in circumstances where we have people who are corrupt, then it is required. Do we have political will for it to be able to run even if you are to get an angel from heaven? No, we don't. And that for me is a problem, that you don't have the goodwill to be able to do that. Is the current government going to do that? 4 months down the line, there haven't been any attempt, because when they came in, they came in with a very huge push towards economic development. And truth be told, and I know there are people who criticize the government just for the sake of criticizing. Truth be told, the economy has started shifting.
Yeah?
Started shifting. Things like, Hustler Fund, they said they were going to do it. In 90 days, it was on. We can complain, we didn't see the system, we didn't see the processes and all that, but it is there.
Okay. Wafula, it is there.
So almost 30 million shillings have been dispersed
to the people,
to people that needed it.
How they use them is
how they use them is their problem.
It's their problem.
But
now this money has been availed.
There's a debate that we can do.
Yes.
Whether they can, whatever is a debate that we can do.
But the money has been availed.
But the money has been dispersed. To an extent, something was promised, and you can actually see that happen.
Yeah.
There was a promise for fertilizer at a cheaper price. We've seen it happen in November, and I gather that there is going to be another whatever
subsidy project.
And what we pray is that this doesn't become again a conduit of money siphoning from the government by corrupt officials, and of course the administrative people that will be used in terms of collecting names and giving it out. My point is, there has been a promise, there has been an action. As far as corruption is concerned, which to my view is the worst disease that we have, no action has happened.
Okay.
In fact, you said very well that Wabukala left slowly. So
I don't know whether he came in silently. I don't know whether...
to be very honest, if you come into an organization as a CEO, I think one of the magical 100 days, you need to understand the organization and see what are the weaknesses and what are the strengths. And you need to advocate for the strength. You need to actually say, for me to work effectively in this organization, I need certain things to be looked into. You cannot be in an organization with its failures, with its weaknesses,
swimming
there, and then when your tenure comes to an end, you start saying, I'm not the one to blame, it is the organization that is weak.
And I mean, that's pretty much interesting. And while Wafula said this in a casual manner, that he has pocketed his salary and he's now exiting, somebody else will come in. We really need to get value for some of these institutions, however much we'd want to defend their existence. So allow us to take a short break, and then we come back, take a look at some of the utterances or some of the view of some leaders in relation to the reign of Wabukala, and maybe unpack them after this break.
Yeah, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics. Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, like this is alive. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa, hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori na historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutu.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV.
Of untold stories.
Alex Mworthy and Evans Wafula on board. And so we come to you, Evans. I'm sorry, I had to take a quick short break. And back to this very important matter. Ledama Ulekina says the EACC needs a radical and no-nonsense person to head it, and a judiciary that cares about future generations. We have seen rot in various state agencies and county governments going unpunished, yet people behind them are supposed to be in jail. Enoch Wambua, that is the Kitui senator, says the good bishop may have meant well for the country, but he was too good for the institution he chaired. Interesting. I thank God that he has exited with his spiritual calling intact. The fight against corruption should never be used to achieve selfish political gains. You certainly do not expect the EACC CEO to speak ill of Wabukala. He says EACC appreciates that Archbishop Wabukala leaves a stable, professional and reliable anti-corruption agency committed to effectively discharge its mandate to the people of Kenya. And while Mwadhi speaks of the fact that he was good a bishop and perhaps not so good for this space, today in most of these commissions, in most of this, even when we're forming commissions of inquiry, even when we're talking about faces that need to speak to the changes of the constitution, most of the time we look to see that there's a representative from the clergy, a representative from religion's side. So just what is this and how much of a plus is that towards making sure that beyond EACC, also other independent agencies, agencies of corruption, get the right faces to steer them forward?
I normally say that where else Wabukala might have led in leading people to heaven or to salvation or to understanding and knowing God, the Maker, he has really failed when it comes to saving the same people from these, what William Mutunga once called the bandit economy, by extension a mafia economy. It is not easy for any independent commission to work in a situation where we are running, the country is being run like a mafia or a bandit country. Look at Italy, where the mafia reign, where they can bribe the cops, they can bribe politicians in the Senate, and even to some extent, they can even bribe the prison warders to get their people eat good meals and have their diets when they're in prison. Yeah. So what I think is the biggest problem is that I think we need to ask ourselves as Kenyans, where do we want to go from here? I think the question of corruption undermines the rule of law and it demeans rights. If we look at corruption as if you steal money that is meant for hospital, you are denying people their right to have access to health. If you're able to get away with a corrupt case from court, you are undermining the legal or the law or the legal process. So it is all the issue of how corruption compromises the social fabric and threatens even our national security. I think at the end of the day, even if you hear cases that we have been facing, whether it is threats of attack by Al-Shabaab, whether it is any criminality, you will find probably there's an element of corruption in that. So we're not only looking at corruption at government officials and what. Even a policeman who takes bribe on the road and allows our unroadworthy vehicle to proceed, and then it causes an accident. So first of all, it's a moral question. that we as Kenyans need to ask ourselves that moral question and then interrogate what are the steps to take. Because I will tell you, if the penalty, and I think we need to review our penal code, that if the penalties for corruption would be matched with capital offense, then I think people will take it serious. It's not a question of being sentenced 90 years. People have been sentenced to capital offense to even to death because of the penal code stipulating maybe murder cases and stuff. Yeah. If corruption is put as a serious capital offense in this country, and anybody convicted, because if you steal money that is meant for hospitals, and people die because they cannot access, you've committed murder. Yeah. So corruption should be looked in a different way. If you steal money for school land and kids are denied to go to school because of your action, you should be charged with a more serious offense. I think that's where we are failing. Yeah. And even Wabukala should be understanding when he was there that he needed to bring some reforms. You know, we remember people with what they brought into the house when they came legacy. In. So what did he bring? It's not a question of him coming from the pulpit, coming to the boardroom and leaving and said, I did my work. Right. I want to remember Wabukala by what reforms he brought into the commission. What is it that he brought that was not there? What value did he bring? When the president can stand on a podium or political leaders stand on a podium and politicize corruption cases and get away with it, he's the one to be blamed. Yeah. Because he needs to come out. He has been like a flower girl, sorry to say. He's the one to come out and even ask the executive, don't interfere with my office. All right. He should even be telling the DPP, explain to me how you discharged these cases, which I had investigated, and I had brought files to you. So that we are able to understand when a competent court in the Republic of Kenya finds the deputy president culpable and asks him to pay or refund money, what magic happens the following day that what the court did was wrong and what the prosecution did was wrong? These kind of games that are being played on Kenya are demeaning. They're so demeaning. They are so embarrassing. We are being ashamed because the truth of the matter is that in many countries that are, even look at in the US, Donald Trump, who was the former president, is being investigated for tax evasion. And there's evidence that he did it. Do you expect that tomorrow, because he was a president, or there are people now that the Republicans have taken over the House, to come and say that those taxes are politicized? Let people carry their own cross.
And true to it, and perhaps just in looking at what the current government, comes with, you speak of some, notable progress that has been witnessed so far, and that then, gives us hope that there's a possibility that this government would surprise us in relation to the question of corruption. One of the biggest questions that most of the people would ask them, even during the times of campaign, how will your government, address the question of corruption? When you look at some of the things that Evans alludes to, when you hear the senator of Nairobi, Edwin Sifuna, say that, well, with all the respect to Wabukala, he did not make meaningful progress in the war against corruption. It is about him as the chair of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and also, a prerogative of the CEO, that is Twalim Barak, and many other agencies that are tasked to help us deal with the question of corruption. How much of hope and, progress do you expect from this government as to the same as in this?
This government, when they were doing the campaign, had promised to do two things that were very, very instructive. Number one, they had promised that they will not politicize the corruption cases or corruption, the whole fight against corruption. And number two, the method that we're going to do is to strengthen the arms that deal with issues corruption to an extent, ensure that the judiciary has its own budget and is able to run, as emphasized by Constitution, independently. the EAC and the other organization were to run independently, and they had promised to be able to fund them. You remember that they came in when the budget for the 2022-2023 had already been passed. The bill was already published. It was an act of parliament. And obviously, from where I stand, I suspect that's why they were not able to do a lot of change in that. But in terms of rhetoric, I would have expected a bit of that, so that we can know that they are looking at maybe a subsidiary budget to be able to fund those organizations. Because the only way those organizations will work will be for them to be to be given the independence that they require. But remember, when you're reading the comments about the EAC and Wabukala, the very first one you read was by Ladama Olekina, who is, I think, the senator for Narok, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
And when you hear him make comments about corruption official who did not do his work, you cringe, because you watched on the 15th of September him assaulting a public official, a state officer, in the glare of the camera with a rungu.
Well, he says also he was assaulted, so...
the law does not excuse ignorance.
Right.
It's a fact. If invariably I had this man, I can't start looking for excuses as to why.
Yeah.
This is one of the people who should be in jail, because for assault, normal assault, you're supposed to be jailed for 6 months. So I don't think you'd have finished his term in jail up to now. So, and that's my problem.
Yeah.
That we speak through our mouths, but we really don't mean what we say. Because if I can't do that in public, in the camera, on the glare of the camera, of the international, because on that day, the entire world was watching Kenya, and I'm able to speak about corruption, then it means I don't mean anything that I've said. And that's, for me, is a bigger problem. That's why I was talking about the fact that the bigger number of us are okay with corruption as long as we are the ones involved in those corruption. To an extent that I would have hoped that there would be a lot of move towards ensuring that the promise of making these organizations to be independent, funding them adequately so that they are able to do their work independent of the government of the day, the executive of the day, that would help us fight the corruption cases that as it were. What have we done? Some of the people that were supposedly being investigated by the previous government, by Wabukala by extension, to an extent some of them were actually even had court cases that were withdrawn, have been appointed in organizations
and in government.
Okay.
That they have a lot of say.
And that becomes...
That doesn't speak well for the country.
Well...
Because Chapter 6, Wafula was saying that the EAC would have used Chapter 6. I want to remind him that EAC could not have used the Chapter 6 the way Kenyans wanted to use it.
Yeah.
Because you are not guilty until
you're proven
guilty. So if somebody accuses you of corruption, you are innocent until proven guilty. So EAC cannot stop Rigiji from vying for the deputy president's position.
It can.
Because...
but it did not.
It can.
Okay.
By law, it can't.
For me, I find it as a moral question.
Okay.
It's a more moral question than
EAC,
legal question.
Government is run by laws, not moral issues.
And that's what I'm saying. If
and EACC, at some point, remember they gave out a list of things.
But if you're a thief and you know you've stolen.
Linda, it's always good in a debate to let one person, unless we do a crosstalk.
Proceed.
It's not good to do I don't think it's a crosstalk. Because that is
No, it is not, but sometimes, there's the importance of interjecting.
Just hold on.
Yes.
Just hold on.
Proceed.
Write it down.
Yes, engineer.
And prosecute
Proceed.
your point later. It's okay to be patient. So they cannot act on the basis of accusation. They cannot act on the basis of somebody going to court. Where the moral issue comes is when, if this guy is accused of doing something, do I appoint them the chairman of CAK? Do I appoint them in the board of KRA? You know, you're talking about the key organizations in this nation. Do I appoint them there? Maybe not, because I'm not very sure that that happened. That's where the moral question comes. But from an EACC point of view, they can't stop you. Because for them, Chapter 6 would require you to be convicted and proven guilty. That's all.
For me, I want to differ. Because let me tell you, and that's where we have a problem. And I really appreciate what the engineer has alluded to. Is that utadu, I am corrupt, I have money to go and contest for an elective position, and I am also having money to hire the best lawyers.
Okay.
What will you do? And that attitude, that mentality is what is really governing us. That is what Kenyans have been meant to take and live with. And that's where we are wrong. And I say Wabukala would have come with a reform mentality that I'm going to reform this organization.
Yeah.
I'm going to investigate and prosecute. But I'm also going to put some benchmark that even if you have been found capable of corruption and you have an ongoing matter in court, the moral question is for you, first of all, finish your case.
Yeah.
This thing of telling people that you can, you know, where we are hiding, where corrupt people and crusaders of the corrupt, where we hide is where we say until proved guilty.
Yeah.
What is this nonsense about until proved guilty?
And maybe that's what
and that's what I'm saying.
It's the law.
Let me tell you, once you're under investigation, you should actually step aside.
But just who will stand again?
And that's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm telling you. If you look at, and sorry to say, and I think truth sometimes hurts. We know many people in this government who have corruption cases. Some are ongoing. Some have even been terminated. But I was saying, even if you sanitize people, the truth of the matter is what is written, what is documented exists. What is not written does not exist. Still it will not get in people's hearts and minds and souls that you did a certain thing. Whether you feel clean within the time that you think. So I think corruption goes beyond even what we hear. We even electoral corruption. Like what Chebukati did was almost amounts to electoral corruption.
Okay.
Because, and that's why I'm saying that we need to be addressing this corruption as a monster and ensure that people who are mentioned in corrupt cases should not be near any. Just take an example. Somebody his case has been terminated and is being accused to have stolen millions of shillings. Now you're taking him and appointing him the governor of Central Bank, for example, or even a minister of finance, or even telling him, now go and take care of these billions. What are you saying? You're actually telling this person, go and do what you used to do. Now you are in a better position, nobody will touch you.
But why would we go against this aspect of, it's until someone is proven guilty? And some of this, we have seen the leaders.
What is the problem? What is the problem of, for example, being found capable or accused for corruption and being under investigation? And that's why I'm saying the moral question then begs
that you sit until the investigations are conducted to the
yes.
Okay?
And you see now here, I remember Kimunya saying one day, I would rather die than resign. In this country, and that's why I'm saying we need to change that mindset. In this country, even the corrupt, they would rather die than resign.
Well,
and you see at the end of the day, the engineer here, I beg to agree that he has traveled worldwide. And he has seen even a train causing an accident and 20 people dying. A minister of roads says resigning. Yeah. Not because somebody has pushed, because you take the responsibility. The moral question begs that I cannot look at the Prime Minister of New Zealand. She has just announced that she will be resigning. There are things that beg the moral, and then for us to transform our society, for us to make Kenya a better society, I think the moral question supersedes and should supersede the legal question. So this thing of people hiding in the law, and then they're making the law to appear like a law of the jungle for the few. Let me tell you one thing. When we start having leaders who come out in a press conference and say that I take responsibility and I'll resign because an accident has occurred. And I think me as a Minister for Transport, I've not been able to be vigilant enough and to make sure that whatever policies are adhered to, I take responsibility. The moment we get to that point,
how we long to get to that point.
And that's what I'm saying. So we should not sit on this platform and start, quoting and, trying to use good words. We should just say the moral question supersedes the law. So that people need to start taking responsibility.
Dr. David Kakai agrees to what it is that you say. He says, good morning, I agree with Wafula about morality, which makes Chapter 6 viable. Once you are accused, you or you have to credibly once you have no credibility, whether guilty or not, your morality is dented. That's interesting. But now I ask again, who will stand? And as I asked that, Chebukati has exited the stage as well, 6 years down. Must have been a tough ride for him, but here we are. Some celebrate him, some, argue otherwise. As Wafula would say, this would equate to electoral corruption. And the search for Chebukati's successor then kicks off officially. But away from that, the president's allegations, and this is something that we spoke to yesterday, but then it's a developing story. They say, act now on Chebukati's death plot. This is what the president is being told. Form a commission of inquiry to make sure that they look into this matter. But just like, you look at this case of Chebukati with the magnitude that you are looking at it, or you are looking it with, or, it's important that you as well remember there was Musando. It is important that you as well remember the returning officer in Embakasi. It is important that you as well remember the numerous people who lost their lives in relation to the question of corruption. Just what does this speak? And coming from the president?
Let me first give my input on that whole issue of morality versus the law. If you ask me, it's critical that people take moral position, so that if there's an accusation, it's your own decision not to move forward until you're cleared, because you're innocent until proven guilty. And any lawyer will sit here and tell you that the number of cases that go to court and are thrown out because of no evidence to prove are more than the cases that actually people are convicted, which tells you that either our society has a problem or we are happy to accuse others without any grounds for the accusation. The moral issue is a personal issue. The law is the law. We can't sit here and assume that an organization that's supposed to follow law will use morals to make a decision. Because people have gone to court and argued their case and said, look, where is the conviction? I'm accused. If you remember, in 2012, this debate was there very much, and I was part of the debate that was going around, because at that time, we had the president, the candidate for Jubilee, the TNA URP candidate for presidency, was convicted of crime against humanity. That's the highest level of crime this world has. So that you're not even accused in your own country. You're accused in those countries, in Hague. His deputy was who is co-accused there, meaning that their conviction would have meant that they are jailed somewhere else in this world, because the crime is huge. It's that bad. We said, and they said, and their supporters said, and some of the people who are now talking about morality said that these guys are not guilty until proven guilty, until convicted. And that's the position of the law. Mere accusation is not a conviction. Fact. We shouldn't waste time arguing about that.
We have courts of facts, and I mean,
exactly. And there are processes of proving guilt or innocence. You go to court and you prove guilt. You go to court and destroy that evidence that I was not guilty. And then the court sits down, and the judge or a bench sits down and say that this man is not guilty or not guilty. So at the point where I'm being accused, You can't make a judgment on me. But, and I'm one of the people who have said here before, that this country will only change when we start taking the moral position. I've said this many times, in many TV stations, radios and whatever, until you get that. And that's why I started with saying that, unfortunately, the law is made for the 20% that will commit crime.
Yeah.
But in this country, 80% of us commit crime. So we have an inverted pyramid. And it's only in civil societies that we are able to shout a law. And yet, we are the same people who are guilty. And that's why I gave the example of Ladema Olekina, accusing others not taking a moral stand. Yet he doesn't. He should have given himself out the following day to the police and say, maybe apologize, maybe do something. He's done nothing. He's just walking around, having committed a crime in front of the world television. And you can't excuse that. You can't explain that. If you explain that, I don't like using strong term, but it'd be nonsensical because we saw it and everybody saw it. Enough evidence? Yes. Presentable to court? Yes. Anybody took him to court? No. Why? Because of political patronage. And that's what is killing us, because every one of us have political patronage and depends on who you know.
Okay.
May God help us that we reach a stage where we start thinking differently and allow our moral feelings to take root. So that today when you drive on the road, don't overlap.
Okay.
When you stop by the police for a crime, don't bribe the police. Agree to go to court and take the penalty so that next time you drive at the right speed. Yeah. If you are working in a business and you are the man in charge of procurement, the moment you start taking chive from people, please don't accuse others of corruption. You are a corrupt fella. And we know that. One company shocked me because when I went to sell some stuff, after we negotiated and this guy accepted that we could do that. It's one of these blue chip companies for information, Wafula, one of these blue chips company, one of the top 3.
Yeah.
And he asked me, okay, fine, I like what you're selling, I like everything, but what is in it for me? I said, no, it's good quality, it's good price, it's everything. So, your computer has built a house for me.
Yeah. Wow.
Good. So what was he doing? Right. He was setting the bar. The other guy has bought me a house, just know what you're going to do. Maybe I should have bought him a helicopter. I walked out. Now, and that's let's not go around that. Right. Let's not pretend. Morality comes from within. We have to make a decision. And I am one of the advocates of people should take moral stand. That if I'm being accused of defrauding the government, I should not vie for any position until I clear myself.
I think, gentlemen, we now come to almost the same, point
conclusion.
Of yes, because Dr. David as well continues to say you can't steal money from Safaricom and you are transferred to Barclays Bank to steal without morality. Ask engineer as to whether he can trust a bank that has a manager who allegedly steals money from customers' accounts, and I think clearly then the engineer here would not accept to that. Morality is the key to Chapter 6. If removed, then there is no need for us to have the EACC. Allow us to take a quick short break, gentlemen, and we come to get your view on the president's allegations and just how quick we need to have some of these answers, for purposes of what is likely to play out in future. So this break.
Yeah, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics. Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, like this is alive. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori la historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutu.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's, after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes, and I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Lover of farming? Well, Kilimo Diaries is your home for different farming ventures, crops, animals, and so much more. Every Sunday. Old stories.
We have two governance experts on asset, Engineer Alex Mwadhi as well as Evans Wafula. Your view on what it is that the president says as to the exit of Chebukati and what played out then, and generally, yes, brings us to the conversation of corruption. And now that you say this is more or less like electoral corruption.
For me, one thing, and I've always said, and I think the president has shot himself on the foot and is being blackmailed by Chebukati. Let us say this with due respect. Chebukati is a criminal. Chebukati is a criminal. If you see the conduct of Chebukati from the time of Asak Hassan, and the way he bungled and followed and removed Chiloba from office, the chicken get scandal, and to the way he has conducted the preceding elections, Chebukati is a criminal. One of the things I have said, as much as he's the one blowing the trumpet saying that his life was in danger, he was about to be abducted, he should never remind Kenyans of what happened to Musanda.
With facts and figures, you should blow the whistle. And I mean, you have the right to go to court.
In fact, he should never remind Kenyans what happened to Musando. He was the custodian of Musando as the chairman. He did nothing to protect him. Now, the other time he was conducting the election, 2 officers were abducted and died. He did never protect them. Now he's coming here to tell Kenyans his life was in danger. There are 2 things that I think should happen. As much as he's demanding and trumpeting that a commission of inquiry should be conducted, and his life was in danger and there was interference, Chebukati needs to tell Kenyans what happened to 8+ million Kenyans who did not cast votes. What did he do in the civic education? How did he conduct the procurement of the election? Chebukati bungled this election by design. And I will tell you one thing. If the commission, and that's why I was telling you the other day, this wasting of time of they're blackmailing the president to bungle out the Kina Cherera. Cherera is not the problem. Chebukati is the problem. Chebukati should be investigated. In fact, do you know what he has done? He has made the president, quote unquote, to be unpopular. Why? You cannot come and tell me that you registered 22 million voters. The president is elected by 1.7. And then you say Raila is elected by 6.9. Subtract 22. Almost 8-9 million Kenyans did not vote. And you are saying that your election was successful. In any democracy that we want to take serious, Chebukati should be explaining to Kenyans what happened to the votes or Kenyans who did not vote.
But you need to understand that it's not compulsory.
No, let me finish what I'm trying to say. The conduct of civic education, where he was given money to do civic education. Let me tell you one thing. Kenya is a democracy in transition. We are maturing democratically. There are in countries where this right to vote, people fought for it. But Chebukati needs to have prepared Kenyans who do not understand the need and the importance of voting to ensure that people understand the importance of it. Is his duty. He was given money to do that. He might have done it or not done it or did it badly, and by design disenfranchised. And me, this question of people saying, and it is just a fallacy, telling Kenyans that it is by choice. Let me tell you, a margin of error in an election like the one we conducted in Kenya should be almost 1 million or 2 million. You cannot come and say over 8 million Kenyans did not go to vote and it is a matter of choice. I'm telling you, you have made the president unpopular. If you take the 8 million who did not vote, plus the 6.9 of Raila, that's almost...
Perhaps more, according to Jeremiah Kioni.
Almost 16 million Kenyans did not vote for Ruto. Ruto was, even if you go by Chebukati's records, that 7.1 elected the president, that is a very unpopular president. And that is because of Chebukati. In fact, Ruto should be telling Chebukati, explain to me why many Kenyans did not vote. Is it that Kenyans don't want to vote? And let us not lie to ourselves. Chebukati is a criminal. Chebukati should be investigated.
Quite heavy allegations here.
Chebukati should be investigated. In fact, the same commission is calling about should begin by investigating him.
Have you proceeded to court as well?
Let me tell you, whatever, let me tell you, this diversionary tactics that he's using, it is so unfortunate for him. I think Chebukati should be taken, and in fact, the report they released and gave to the president is just pieces of papers, because Chebukati did not address the most critical question of Kenyans going to an election and only electing a president with an unpopular vote. What happened to the popular vote that could elect a president? And at the end of the day, let me tell you one thing. The types on the likes of Chebukati, even as he exists, I've seen some legislators saying that he should be given work in government. In fact, that is the worst insult to Kenyans. That a person who has bungled elections, a person who has actually by design, and I can tell you by design, if anybody would petition Chebukati to be investigated.
The petition to the level of the Supreme Court and vindicated.
You will be surprised to find out. I told you another time I was talking here and I was saying, 1 month to election, 2 months to elections, you walk in offices, you find ID cards lying in offices, they have not been dispatched, people are being disenfranchised. It's not a question that people refuse to go and vote. Chebukati should actually be able to prepare Kenyans to go to an election. And by design, I'm sure, by design, Chebukati committed an offense by disenfranchising people who could not even participate in election. Look at the way he was announcing here that he has introduced some new polling stations. What happened to it? I remember when he was conducting voter registration, he said that we are not able to reach the target. Chebukati has committed serious electoral offenses. Chebukati should be investigated by that very commission. He should stop blackmailing the president.
Yes.
And he should start, let me tell you, blackmailing the president by not trying to show the president that he did his best when Ruto got only 7.1 million out of a population of 22 million registered voters, creating an unpopular president.
Okay, allow us to loop in engineer here. But when engineer Mutai says that if the people who are currently in Ruto's system say they were fixed, can they also tell Kenyans whether they are also fixing their removal from corruption charges? It is important that we get to understand this. And then Jolene Wamboi says Chebukati should indeed proceed to, answer some of these questions. Otherwise, they appear criminal, as, Wafula would say. We have said this 101 times. It is important that we look into the system in terms of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Otherwise, this will manifest some more in future.
The problem of personalizing a problem is that we become emotional and sometimes we lose track of what is factual and what is phantom. We know that criminals are supposed to be taken to court, and it's a court that determines that somebody is a criminal by the charge that is laid against him or her, and then proven. There's a man who was doing his job, to the best of his ability. The last election was disputed. The matter was taken to the Supreme Court of this nation, and the Supreme Court looked at it, and they used very strong words that maybe I wouldn't use, hot air, goose, whatever, but what they meant is that there was no evidence that would prove the case against the election of the current president, which means that this president won fairly. And that election was conducted by one Chebukati, with all his weaknesses and whatever. Where when you become emotional, you lose sight, is talking about disfranchisement of people who did not vote. Democracy is a worldwide concept that people present themselves, and the qualified, legitimate people go to vote for them. Democracy determines that the winner wins by majority. And in Kenya, because of our situation in the past, where I remember in one election, there were about 5-6 candidates. The late Moi got, I think, 26% of the votes, and the rest shared the rest. But he was the one with the majority. When we are putting up the Constitution in 2010, we determined that for you to win, you must get 50% plus one vote of all the elected votes. Now, who determines who goes to vote? It's an individual. There's nobody who forces anybody to go and do that. And that's their democratic right. That when you vote for Ruto, you're voting for Ruto. If you stay at home and he wins, you voted for him. Because you never went to vote against him. Now, if you say the world over is a dangerous statement, because I want you to remind you, Linda, in 2021, Canada had an election. Only 45, I think about 45% of the people went to vote. Less than 50%. And if you look, and any listener can Google, the average voting percentage worldwide is 60%. It's only in countries where there are dictatorships like North Korea, where when you have elections, or where we have very good benevolent leaders like Singapore, where that goes to 90%. The rest of the world votes at 60%. And the winner is the one who gets the highest vote among the 60% of people who voted. Because that's what democracy is all about. It's not everybody voting. There's no requirement. It's the people who vote. To an extent, if only 20% of Kenyans went to vote on the 9th of August, and Raila Odinga got 50 plus 1, he would have declared president. That's democracy. That's the law.
You must have watched, Jeremiah Kioni and the Azimio team present some of the numbers.
We are still trying to math those maths, yes, but they don't seem to be mathing.
Okay.
Because the very
and
basic,
even if they do math,
because some things are done for information.
Yes.
That that happened.
Oh, it's important.
So that going forward, we can look for ways to deal with it. The reason it's not mathing is that the basic statement is that 59% could not be verified. Number one, the only way to verify is look at the Form 34As and compare them with the actual votes in the boxes. You cannot do the votes in the boxes unless you have a court order. We haven't heard of any court order to allow all the boxes to be opened.
Okay.
I gave you almost 5 minutes to talk. Okay, give me time. When you're talking, I could have interjected.
Let's cut to the
chase. When you tell people that 8 million people did not vote, so they don't support Raila, what are you talking about? It's not a statement to be made on public television. Okay. Because public television, we should give people facts that when you vote, you decide. If you don't vote, you decide. Either way. And the law does not require everybody to vote.
But is it not a concern that what he raises, we need to look into? Because in future, and that is the biggest fear of what would be of 2027, that maybe Kenyans will decide that, they really do not see the essence and the importance of going. That is in order.
There are many countries that have done that.
And that is in order?
It's not,
even when it gets
it's not in order.
Yes.
But you can't allocate that blame to an individual. You can't. People have chosen that
even when, it could be clear that they really did not go out there to make sure that there's civic education, to get the people out to vote, to use the language of the youth. And
which part of this country
didn't they get?
People go to campaign.
Okay.
Come on. Okay. Which corner of this country did people go to campaign? from MCA all the way to the presidency.
Okay.
They went on.
So that cannot be blamed.
No, cannot be blamed on Chebukati.
Okay, but then if it can't be blamed on them, if it can't be blamed on him.
Sorry, Linda.
Yes.
And you can blame it on Chebukati, but it's not a crime.
Yes. On the basis of the fact that, as an electoral body, they are tasked to as well make sure that there's proper civic education. And so you agree it can be, but it's not.
It's a conversation.
Yes.
Just to look for reasons to accuse him.
Okay, interesting.
It has no basis.
Linda, let's, with due respect to the engineer,
there
were many instances, and he knows, where voters went to the ballot, to the polling stations, and their names were not there. They had been transferred. Let me tell you, even the audit that the audit that had been done of voter transfers, removing dead voters and cleaning up the register, the time was not enough for them to clean that old register.
And those cases
there
were
are many
raised,
cases where people went with their national ID cards to vote. They could not be found in the register. They have been moved. That's a fact. And at the end of the day, Linda, let me tell you, for example, I know of a person who changed his vote, but it was not effected.
Yes.
When you go to when you go to vote, you are told your vote has been sent to another station. You have no time to go there. That is IEBC disenfranchising you. These are cases to be investigated.
Right.
You see, we are not going to sit here and say mistakes did not happen. Chebukati is not a saint.
How important would it be for us to make this fully electronic?
Let me tell you one thing. One of the things I've said, and I think our parliamentarians need to hear this. One of the things we have said in terms of electoral reforms, that in many democracies that have been successful, we don't need one day to just vote. We need even 7 days to vote. We need people who can conduct their votes electronically, those who can vote through other means, and then we need the actual voting day, the last day, to mop up people who have not been able to vote. And we don't need to be saying that we must vote for 8 elective positions or 7 elective positions on one day. We need to actually decentralize our voting system so that we say the election of the president, the governor, and the senator will be conducted in a certain manner. Because it doesn't cost us anything when you go to a polling station and you have to fill 6 to 7 papers. So we could actually say that people can start voting on a certain day. The voting period can be even 3 days, so that we make sure that people who have not been able to vote. I was joking, I was actually discussing with some IT guy, and he was saying, if you can transact money with M-Pesa using your national ID, you can actually cast a vote, and then when you try to do it twice, they say this ID has been used. The vote of this ID has already been counted. We can, if we really want to have a credible election, we can. But I'll tell you, and I totally disagree with the engineer. Chebukati is culpable for what happened in the election. Let me tell you one thing. You've seen even the commission that has been taking place in the US about the problem they had after the election. If we have a commission here, we have even members in the commission who are willing to come and speak about what happened. It's not only about investigating death threats and people coming to bomb us. People inside the commission are willing to come and speak about what rot happened in that commission. Is Chebukati ready to allow that to happen? And
beyond what it is that we're talking about.
Leave alone the Supreme Court. Leave alone the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court did its work. Engineer will agree with me that when you're preparing to go to court for a matter, you will gather the evidence and they're stipulated time.
Yes.
And you will go with that evidence.
Yes.
If your case is thrown out, it is thrown out. I don't know, the law in the Supreme Court, there's no appeal.
Yeah.
But if you get evidence after the case has been thrown out, I don't know what
Wakili says it's for information. Others will go to the East African.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say here is that
Court of Justice.
In fact, we are saying Chebukati is blackmailing the president. Let the president form that commission, and let that commission.
And he agrees to that.
Let that commission not only investigate, because we are not going to investigate that. How special is Chebukati that we have to form a commission? Remember, it.
I think you're being personal now.
Listen.
It's not right.
Remember when there was somebody said that the previous regime, when somebody came out and said that there's a plan to assassinate the deputy president. I think you had something like that. Yes. You remember?
Yes.
The DCI conducted his investigation.
Yes.
This is what Chebukati is talking about. The DCI should investigate.
Yes.
Don't try and play with Kenyans.
And beyond Chebukati, it is important that for sanity in future, yes.
Could I come in?
Let's allow about 6 minutes. And let's talk progressive for a moment. Let us minutes. Yes, let's allow.
Of that, I read that is the election in
let us be progressive for a moment. Notable flaws were there, and discrepancies were evidently there. And now we're talking what we need to do in future. First of all, we're talking about how we need to form this other commission that will come on board, to make sure that they're well vetted and they are fit for the job. Progressively speaking, how do we make sure that we sanitize this process so that some of these problems we have witnessed then are a game of the past?
It's a result of what we've done over the last 60 years as a nation. These are the results. And for general information to everyone, Chebukati is no longer the chairman of IEBC. Of the IEBC.
Yes, it's the IEBC.
He's no longer the chairman of IEBC, so he has no sway, no power over anybody who works in IEBC. So no one can sit here and say that they are fearing that he will come and do anything to them if they come out and tell the truth. They should actually have done that 3-4 months ago, but today he's not the chairman. He has no sway whatsoever. He has no responsibility at IEBC whatsoever. That's a law. And if you're the one who has anything to say, just say it.
You're at liberty.
Nobody stopped you from saying it in January and November and December. So let's not sit here and pretend that he's such a powerful man that is guggling everybody's mouths.
But his fellow commissioners have said that. Well,
he's no longer the chairman.
Okay.
Say what
at least for now, someone can say or hold their peace
in the commission. Okay. The other thing that has happened is that the president has not specified that you're going to investigate. You're going to investigate. What did he say? We need to do an audit. What does an audit involve? Audit involves checking everything that happened. When the TOR is out for the audit team,
inquiry, not audit, inquiry.
Audit.
Okay,
inquiry, whichever name you want to call it. When that team is out, people like Evans should look at that TOR with what is it? With a microscope. So they ensure that they propose change in that TOR to include those things they are talking about, so that those things can be investigated. A nation only runs when people obey the law and respect the institutions that are there, however bad they could be. You have to have a respect and change them as you move forward. Don't agree with them necessarily, but change them and find a way of changing them. When the US had an election, the former president spoke to his supporters, and you know what happened in Capitol Hill. Capitol offenses. They've done their own inquiry. They tried to impeach him a second time. As a matter of fact, he was impeached the first time, and he was impeached, but he continued being president. So the moral thing has also started shifting in the West, in that people don't consider it anymore. We're talking about his tax investigation. This started in 2017. Now it's 2022, 5 years down the line. A system that people vote in 3-4 days in a so-called credible election until Trump questioned it. By the way, Trump questioned that election system, so they may go back to paper like we do here, and maybe do it in a day, if you hear what he's saying. So the point I'm making is, as long as I'm not logical and focused on the issues that are there, so that if I want change, I create change from whatever is already there, not to throw away everything, baby in the water. I'll always be complaining. This is about an inquiry to find out what happened in that election. Why don't we give it time so that we can see? The only issue as stated in one of the dailies today, is that the supporters of the president are already talking about plot against, so that they're kind of making him try to focus on issues that has to do with Chebukati. Yet there are more issues than Chebukati, because we still have Musando. We still have the Musyoka from Embakasi East that died. We know that the commissioners were injured during that scuffle on the 25th. So really the inquiry should include all this and be able to come up with a report that says what happened. If that report happens, do we want to call people criminals? I don't think it's fair.
It is not.
I don't think it's fair.
All right, let's get to the parting shot.
It's not even right to call anybody a criminal.
I want to use this podium to say, as the engineer said, I personally will move with speed to petition the same president to investigate Chebukati. Because we are not going to be sitting here and discussing somebody who has said his life is in danger, that there was a ploy to abduct him and kill him. And you even blackmailed the president to speak that way.
What do you mean blackmail the president?
Let me tell you. Let me explain. Let me explain.
I'm sorry.
For him.
Very difficult.
No. Listen.
Sorry, now
let me ask you a question.
Now I'll interject.
Let me ask you a question. Did you hear the president's speech?
I did.
What did the president say about
Chebukati? About
this. What did the president say about Chebukati?
There was a threat on his life.
And to make our president to believe
but don't use the word blackmail.
What do you mean?
Because you are trying to make
and perhaps it's not even Chebukati who did that. Remember, the people who are on ground.
To make the president who is the figure of, is the symbol of unity. To make our president, our beloved president, to speak into your own words.
An active party who you know.
Linda, listen.
It was part and parcel of the election hearing process.
And that's what I'm trying to say. Then I'm saying, for you, if Chebukati had those fears, he could go to the DCI, any police station, and make a statement and say his life is in danger. Is it
Chebukati or it's just the president?
Listen. Do you think the president is not just dreaming? The president spoke into Chebukati's words, and he said, there was a plan to abduct even the chairman.
And
for you to make our president believe that was something that... No, let me tell you...
Wafula, let's be realistic.
No.
Yes.
So let me tell you, Chebukati feared that he will be abducted, isn't it? The president is very concerned about those fears.
Yes.
Fears have come from who?
These fears have come from Chebukati.
Did they? That's why I said all these people were active parties during this election hearing process.
Can I tell you something?
Yes.
Chebukati also spoke. I remember when one of the commissioners said that they had to go in hiding for 3 days.
Yes.
Yeah? Fearing for their lives.
Yes. Chebukati said he was at home.
Let me tell you. Let me finish. You see, we really have to be serious about what he said.
Yeah.
Because he said in fact, the commissioner said that they had to change vehicles. They were using a NOAA to leave even their own official cars. Why were they saying that? If those fears were legit and they were there, they would have gone and reported to the police.
Okay.
Now that they are leaving the office, they are coming with a report, and in the midst of that report, they are expressing now themselves and saying, some of us, we were threatened. Our lives were in danger. When our beloved president speaks into those words, because he's not speaking because he's the originator of the fears. The commissioners have raised an issue which the president has picked up.
And a president who was actively
involved, but he has picked up and raised his concern. And the
can we say that confidently we expect that a commission of inquiry then...
I totally agree.
I want to come in with
only one statement.
Only one statement. Let me do one statement.
Yes.
I hope that Evans Wafula, in using the word blackmail, is that he's not internalized the meaning of that word. Because blackmail in English means the action treated as a criminal offense of demanding payment or another benefit for someone in return for revealing, compromising, or damaging information about them.
So should we
Number
ask him
two,
to
as a verb, he says demand money or another benefit from someone in return or not revealing, compromising, or damaging information about them. To sit here and talk about the president being blackmailed.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you something?
Wrong.
Can I tell you? No. Can I tell you something?
Wrong.
Can I tell you something? Is it rocket science that already there are now calls for Chebukati to be given a job in government?
It is not rocket science.
No. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say.
How is that blackmail?
He has read the definition of blackmail.
Yes.
Because you are giving information, expecting something in return. Already today, 1 day, 2 days after leaving office, there was already a plan. People people allied.
What is the evidence of blackmailing?
Listen.
Okay. Maybe we should close it up or take a quick short break and then come back.
It's not fair.
We take a short break and then we'll come back. And we'll ask for him to withdraw. At least that one, yeah.
Yeah, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics. Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is alive. Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori na historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutu.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's, after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes. And I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Lover of farming? Well, Kilimo Diaries is your home for different farming ventures, crops, animals, and so much more. Every Sunday, with a new year comes endless possibilities, and as we continue to tell the stories of those abled differently,
and you know, whether this comes from the president or from the commissioners themselves, then it would be, because every life matters. This needs to be looked into. And beyond the fact that this is Chebukati, we're talking about the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission that will have other faces occupying this space. And therefore, their safety is crucial to us having sanity as a nation. And so perhaps just to look into that matter as we sum it up. Just how best do we proceed or forge forward?
And that's why I'm saying a commission of inquiry
to be set
up
without castigating the president,
without castigating anybody. Yes. And that's why I was saying that let that commission be established. Let it begin by investigating each and everything. Not only the fears of abduction and death, but also the conduct of the election.
Yes.
And I've been very clear. I've said, if the conduct of the election has a problem, let that commission investigate everything, not just selectively, so that Kenyans who have a petition about what they think did not happen properly. The engineer said here that Chebukati is no longer the chairman of IEBC. Probably we have people within the secretariat who would be willing to come and speak in that commission of what happened.
Let them be allowed.
And also the question, and that's the question that I'm talking about, where the commissioners themselves have asserted that their lives were in danger. I remember them saying that they even changed their vehicles. Those are very serious issues. And that's why I was saying the president have picked up and really taken it seriously. And you see now, if today your child comes and tells you that his friend beat him up, and probably he was not beaten, you'll be angry. You will take it up and you will want to know, why did you beat my child? Because you are taking you're actually listening to what your child is telling you. That I was beaten at school by somebody. You will pick up and even go and ask the school, or even call the teachers. Your kid was bullied, and probably was not bullied. So that your kid to make you pick that phone call and call the school, it is because of the word that your kid has told you. It's not because of anybody else. So I think their fears might be valid. If they are, they should be investigated. And I think the concern of the president is not just a simple concern. That concern of the president comes out after the commissioners themselves have actually expressed that as a concern that they faced, the threat they faced. So it's not a question of, and you see, once you've made me, like even if I'm a CEO of a company and you come and tell me that you are prevented from covering a story, I will take responsibility and find out why. So I will only believe you until the investigation proves otherwise.
And the president, alluded to this even before speaking of this matter. The very first time he spoke to journalists this year, and he said that in future then, or moving forward, we're looking to see how best we can address the August 9th election, for that matter. And so we want to trust and believe that indeed this commission will be formed, or a commission of inquiry will be formed. And like you rightfully put it, it shouldn't be about one affair. So as we sum it up, Alex Mwathi, on this very matter, and generally your expectations moving forward for the day.
It's a fact that a lot of things have come up out of that, the elections and the aftermath of that, in terms of counter accusations. And it's only fair that we remain civil in our discussion about it, especially when you're addressing Kenyans, not in a political field where they consider us as experts in some of these matters. That yes, when there are a lot of accusations and whatever discussions and issues coming out, there is a need for an investigation. Whether you call it an inquiry, you call it an audit, there has to be one that looks at all the matters that are concerned. And I think that will be done in the public domain in terms of even the TOR of the team being declared. You notice that it's normally gazetted, so you're able to see what are the issues that they're supposed to investigate. And we need to be able to go to those inquiries and be able to give our words about it. I think using uncivil words is not a good idea. I think we need to talk
to, will tell you it's a right to expression
to our viewers and your viewers, so that we by the end of the show, then we're able to educate them on one or two things, because it's not a political contest as it was supporting this guy or that guy. And I'm hoping that the president will be able to do this and be able to ignore the calls from his people that you must appoint him, you must do all that. He has to look at it and logically be able to do that. Maybe for purpose of information for our viewers, you must know that he's the President of the Republic of Kenya. And from the day he was declared as acting president, he started getting, and by the way, he was even getting before, because the deputy president, the briefing of all the security arms. So he knows much more than everybody else. He doesn't need to depend on anybody to tell him or to say anything whatsoever. And I think as a country, may God help us we move forward. I'm hoping one of the things that happened in forming the Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, is that it was led largely, and I will not feel ashamed to say that it was more led by the so-called the civil society organization, because at that time they were very strong in this country for almost 20 years. And that constitution was to remove Moi from power. So a lot of things were done in mind to ensure that we never have a dictator again. We never have a dictator again like Moi. And that's why you find people saying that we need to change this and that. That when you go to this inquiry, because it will form the basis for going forward, so that we can ensure that this doesn't, whatever everyone sees was wrong, doesn't happen in the next election. That will open our minds and look at this country 200 years from now, 300 years from now. What will our great-great-grandchildren enjoy as a legacy from us? Like the Constitution the United States Constitution that was done in the 1800s and is still effective and used today and quoted so much in the world, and it was done by men that time had no education like we have today.
Okay.
May God help us.
All right, amen to that.
I think I really appreciate my panelist engineer here, and I think sometimes when we are discussing these issues, we really need to avoid to be a little bit academic, because at the end of the day, I think even Kenyans out there, they understand the seriousness of our politics, they understand the seriousness of our political landscape, and they also understand that the issues we are discussing are very serious issues, especially they constitute where this country goes in future. So I think, as he has alluded, and which I totally agree, is that let's wait if this commission will be established. Let us, those who feel that we have something to speak against the conduct of Chebukati, present even ourselves and petitions to ensure that Kenyans should actually know what kind of a character and person Chebukati is. Because I can tell you, we are all human. Engineer here might have his own faults. I might have my own faults. Chebukati might have his own faults. But because of the office that he holds, it is subject to public scrutiny. And this is why we sit on these forums, not to castigate, but to point questions. If I was in that position, I'm sure people will ask same questions about me. So I think it's just an opportunity he was given to serve, and because he's a public office, he's a public servant, we, as we sit on this side, he should not feel we are castigating him, but we are pointing out to make that institution a better institution, so that the people who will come in that office will actually be better. And I will vouch for the engineer. If they advertise for the position of the Electoral Commission, you should apply. And because you are competent, you are a good man, I have seen, and you can be able to deliver Kenyans to the next dispensation.
That is the most dreaded office, they say. I mean, our men say, hey, that is the most dreaded.
No, but engineer is competent than other commissioners that I've seen there.
And which of these ones? Are we talking about who and who? Those ones that... But we are looking forward to see quite open process of getting the next commissioners. We do not want cases where we're told these ones came in 2 months, 3 months to the election. They were literally planted there. It is unfortunate for us to speak of such a situation, that even when they come out to speak of what they think, then it is hard to trust them, because there's this general feeling that this has been crafted, this was orchestrated even before they came to office. So, gentlemen, I must say thank you so much for speaking to us, political analyst and governance expert Evans Wafula, for the great insights. Quite an intense debate online, I must admit, but then we have to close it from this very point. And as well, Engineer Alex Mwathi, thank you so much for the great insights.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And we're looking forward to more and more of